Swiss stuff or the MLG events that used to happen on game battles. So he's got lots of tournament experience in the past, and so that's why it seems like he's not really nervous. He's playing pretty calm, and he's gonna start off the series with his Druid, and he's gonna go up against Trump's Warrior. And Druid feels like it's a pretty good start because you are able to pressure Warrior earlier on, and if you is running things like Force of Nature, Savage War combos, you can end the game pretty early against it.
Yeah, I think the Druid is one of those decks that on ladder right now, it's probably a little bit more of a poor choice. There's going to see it. You're going to see a lot of Hunter. You're going to see a lot of Zoo, things of that nature. And those are two decks that Druid doesn't perform particularly well against. But in a tournament, again, you're going to be banning out your opponent's Hunter a very significant portion of the time. I think when you have a Druid in your lineup, and in that same vein, it's like you only have to play against Zoo one time after that. So it can't just be every single one of your opponent's decks Zoo, unless they want to build like Priest Zoo and Mage Zoo. Like if you're forcing or something. We saw earlier his decks are basically just. It looked like they were all Zoo to me. But it's like coming into this one, it's still a fine choice. Defender of Argus is kind of gives me the impression that he wants to really press his boarded advantage when he snags it and go from there. But outside of that, it looks like it's going to be pretty standard.
Yeah, I wonder if it's more of just a standard mid-range Druid. He's running double Drakes, a card that a lot of Druids felt like wasn't cutting it for a while because the Drakes, as much as it's good as a placeholder because of the stats and the draw and I guess the synergy with things like Swipe and Wrath, things like Sludge Belcher and Spectral Knight and Lotheb easily replace Azure Drake because of what it brought to the table in matchups. Yep. So it's interesting that he's kind of rotated it back in, and it seems kind of like an old school retro Druid.
Yeah, this also just may have come from like a position of this just comfort. Like this may be a deck that he's just very familiar with. Again, I don't really know a lot about his individual playstyle, so it's hard for me to say one way or the other. But it seems like I really like his hold of the Harvest Golem on turn one, not innervating it out, because Fiery War Axe is like one of these nightmare cards that you don't want to be playing against when you play something like Harvest Golem. So his patience really paying off there and allowing him to get out the Azure Drake. Of course, Trump having Shield Slam for that. But the way he's playing this so far, it kind of tells me that he is experienced with this Druid deck, and as a result, that's why I think it's what tells me it's a comfort pick anyway.
Argent Commander coming into the hand. So it seems to be more of the fast type of Druid where you're able to build the board and continue to pressure like that mid-range we mentioned. It's just the Defender of Argus is an interesting tech choice. Meanwhile, Trump does have a really good hand too. Go on.
I'm not sure how good Argent Commander is right now with the Premier 5-drop being Sludge Belcher instead of Azure Drake. It seems a little counterintuitive. Like before, everyone was playing Azure Drake, and so a strong answer to that was to play Argent Commander, and so Argent Commander would take out the Azure Drake. So the card you would answer your opponent's Azure Drake, and the card you would draw, quote unquote, in effect would be a 4/2 minion onto the board. And that was like the way that you swung the Azure Drake turn back. But now your opponent's not playing Azure Drake; they're just playing Sludge Belcher, and Argent Commander does not match up well against Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it that way. I didn't really think about how it stacks against that. So I guess the Argent Commander will be left just pushing basically for damage. I mean, he's got a lot in his hand right now. He's got double Swipe, double Argent Commander. So there's lots of ways to affect the state of the board. How do you kind of piece that together based off what Trump has? Which, by the way, doesn't look very sexy other than the Sludge Belcher.
Well, his position doesn't look bad either, though. His plays aren't necessarily power plays; they're just sort of defensive stances. But that's not like a bad position to be in, I think, by any means. Taking out his Azure Drakes, that Swipe won't kill a Sludge Belcher. But this is the exact position that we were just referencing. It's how good does Argent Commander match up against Sludge Belcher? And the answer is it doesn't. Like, these are just basically dead drops.
Well, even more than that, it's ineffective. You can't even take out a Sludge Belcher 1-for-1.
Right. It's a completely dead drop. This would be much better served as something like Sylvanas or Karen or Lotheb.
Interesting. We still haven't seen anything else. We just see a 3-pair for Wuaschtsemme. Double Swipe, double Ancient, double Argent Commander. I still haven't seen if it's... is he playing Watchers, for example, with like what Reynad did, where he played mid-range with Defender of Argus and Sun Fury Protector, or is it more like a fast Druid with double combo, and he just hasn't drawn things like Violet Teacher? and his
I
power of the
would
wall. I don't
I
know.
would guess that something like Violet Teacher's not in this deck. There's not a lot of room for Argent Commander if you're including stuff like that. But the two Argent Commanders does tell me that he's got he's got two copies of Force and Nature and Savagor in his deck. Wow, look at this. This feels miserable if you're in his position.
Yep. You spend 6 mana to remove the front end of Sludge Belcher, and your opponent can continue to stack it. Your advantage. And Trump does have ways to continue drawing and putting stuff on the board.
Oh wow. I think this is a gain some armor turn.
I think Baron Geddon works a little bit too much against you here.
Yeah, definitely a card he wants to save. A pretty strong follow to something like Argent Commander, though, ironically.
All right, well, Ancient Allures provide really powerful
Oh,
turns.
wow.
A Violet Teacher makes an appearance.
Look at that. I was completely wrong.
You know what? This also makes me think he plays Kel Thazad in his deck. Because I think things like Argent Commander and everything, like with Token and how everything's kind of been produced with Power of the Wild, makes it really powerful. Although I wonder again, because we haven't seen too much. It's interesting because now we get to see how this deck performs, granted its place in the metagame. So it's a little bit exciting. It is also a little confusing sometimes because we're not sure how to cast this. It's like, well, what is he looking for when he Wrath for 1, right? Because is he looking for something else to kind of draw into or maybe finish the game? Who knows?
Yeah, not having complete information certainly makes our job a little bit more difficult. But this looks to me like he just wants to cycle the slam. He may even... There's a possibility he trades his minions in here. Or just kind of ignores this and keeps moving, like just plowing forward. That's a possibility also.
What kind of intel does Trump have, though? Because he's seen Azure Drake.
Oh,
And
wow.
so if he's thinking more of a mid-range,
Yeah, he's certainly thinking of mid-range. It's
so
like,
then
this...
he's afraid of extending into something like BGH, which might have it.
Yeah, that's definitely something he's concerned with. I think that Baron Geddon's a better follow-up to BGH than it is a better lead into it. Like, I'd rather drop Ragnaros and have Ragnaros get BGH and then play the Baron Geddon to, for sure, sweep it out than the other way around. This is, of course, like a very general context. But Trump having a lot of plays that he can make throughout the course of this game. Like, he had the potential to just ignore the Ancient if he wanted to. Picking up the Acolyte of Pain really solidifies his play, though. He definitely wants to get the Deathspite active, especially if he's got the Unstable Goal in play. He wants to be making pushes at his opponent's minions to try to get completely out of reach at some point. So Armorsmith wouldn't be a bad pickup. And certainly any of his late-game legendaries aren't bad pickups right now either. But this is sort of one of those spots where Druid, if it ends up not being pressured in life total, can pull pretty far ahead simply because of how much charge damage you look like he's putting together here. But his hand right now is super expensive. You're looking at 13, 19, 23, 27, 31, 30, 37 mana worth of cards in hand. It's going to take quite a while to get that developed. You're looking at least 3 or 4 turns.
Yeah, you're gonna need a lot more interface to squeeze that out in a couple turns. That's for sure. In the meantime, why not just start back at the bottom and just play some of their core creatures like Violet Teacher out and able to do some good stuff. Trump, in the meantime, picks up Brawl, which will be an important card if now that he sees that it's Token Druid, and it might be one of his board clears and resets.
Trump is going to be saving this Shield Block Shield Slam for what I anticipate being a long time.
So then you think dropping the Acolyte and killing off the Violet Teacher here is the first way to start off the turn?
I think it's a good way to do it, but it's definitely worth thinking through. A lot of options are available.
Yeah, you want to be mindful of what you can draw into too, because as much as you want to if you're going to draw anyways, lead with Shield Block, but if you pick up something like Karen and you don't have the mana to do it, then you want to do it now. Well, Trollolol, second Death Bite. So I guess Trump doesn't really accomplish too much but putting an Acolyte on. In that case, he might just use Shield Block. I think so. Yeah, he's picking it up.
How much merit is there to executing right now? That feels really awful, but it doesn't... It's not like the worst thing in the world. It's just 1 mana, 3 damage right now. And with the way that this match has been developing, I'm not sure he's too worried about an opponent having a very large range of spells. Like, I don't think he anticipates something like Ancient of War after seeing the Violet Teacher. So it feels a lot more safe to go ahead and use the Execute here than it would be if this was still like a very typical standard druid that we've been seeing lately. And when he sees Argent Commander, he's going to feel a lot more comfortable about having used Execute as well.
Okay, Wuaschtsemme picks up Harvest Golem. So now you can kind of piece together some big turns of flooding the board, and he still has that second Ancient of Lore as well to refill once things get kind of low. But everything is kind of like it feels like it's a situational react to how things go. Like Defender of Argus to build up more of the board, or Argent Commander in response to something. How do you kind of lead here?
Yeah, that's sort of the issue I'm seeing as well. Is how do you actually move forward with a hand like this? And again, this is sort of a consequence of having 2 copies of Argent Commander.
Right, instead of a conventional like Sylvanas and just slap it down, load that to disrupt. So he's gonna go and draw for more options. Why not?
Wow, that's
okay. So
my mind is blown right now. I don't know.
So he has a lot of the heavier cards that he drew.
Yeah,
this is kind of unfortunate. He drew pretty poorly then relative to what his deck is.
Yeah, I would say so.
That is certainly interesting. Now, unfortunately, playing this Argent Squire gives 2 cards to Trump, at least. Unless he plans on brawling. Which I don't necessarily think that's the case, granted that he does have Death Bite and ways to remove the Ancient of Lore, and he's still not under heavy pressure yet. It's not to the point where every single turn he's worried about Force of Nature Savage War. Yet.
How much merit?
You always can get there.
Just using Faceless on the 5/5.
I mean, Faceless is mainly the control winner, right? And your ticket to securing the game. I don't know. Are you trying to put on counter pressure or just trying to outlast the Druid?
It's tough to say at this point. You have a lot of tools in your hand that act as counter pressure. But
that's true. Weapons.
You have a lot of outlast tools as well. You're still open.
Yeah. I think this is a safer approach.
Yeah.
And it makes the most sense.
This is one of the reasons why I think that the Faceless on the 5/5 made a lot of sense here, is because you put yourself in this position, except you just have a 5/5 and 2 less armor. Which the 2 less armor is not that important because you just shield slammed.
Then you're vulnerable to second swipe, though.
Sure, I mean you're going to pick up a card off of it. It forces your opponent's hero power. It's just it's manipulating your opponent's turn.
That's true. You dedicate 4 mana off onto removal. Okay, second Defender of Argus boosting up the Haunted Creepers. That's one way to give it late game relevance.
I think you also, if you're going to brawl this turn, you certainly attack with the 1/1, I think, before you brawl. Drawing the card, I think, is more important than 25% chance for that to win the brawl.
Yeah, you're going to go, if you brawl but let's see, you also get a 50-50 chance of being able to go for the full board clear, but I agree. Trump's going to see what he draws first, and he's drawing into some of the thickest parts of his deck, too. Ragnaros, Black Knight, also nice.
Not sure how good Black Knight is or isn't right here, but I think Trump is really now... here's the other thing, too, is his opponent's been holding 3 of these cards in his hand for pretty much the entire game, so he's got to think about what order all this stuff actually happens. Okay, I see what's going on.
Execute.
I was like, I think that he may have forgotten the order of death rattles, but this makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to once you've gotten to this point, I think you've committed to executing. You don't have another way to activate the execute, and you have Ragnaros and Faceless and Black Knight in your hand. I don't think you're worried about whether or not you have your second copy of that right now. Now's where you start pushing for the game.
Completely agree. Wuaschtsemme does have response with Thanos Swipe, but that's going to be the least of his worries when he has to face up against things like Ragnaros and Ragnaros the Fire Lord, as well as the Black Knight, being able to push out whatever he wants to. So we'll see how Wuaschtsemme can kind of pull back from this, because he's still kind of far away from his win condition. I'm very surprised he hasn't picked up any combo pieces.
I mean, there's a possibility he's not running them, with Token Druid fitting and all this other stuff.
How crazy would that be? Just like a mind bend to use Violet Teacher and all these other cards, but no combo finishers.
I'd really like to see him use Violet Teacher now that you picked that up. but I think this is fine. It's holding the swipe for a big Thanos turn is still fine. Like to counter Sludge Belcher here. Like if his opponent plays Sludge Belcher, then he can Violet Teacher Thanos swipe. Ooh.
Grommash off the top. Well, when in Rome. Because, I mean, there's nothing else really better to do. The Ragnaros is too much of a coin flip relative to what's been on the board.
And this is the exact same play we were just talking about, too, where he's going to find himself in a position where the Thalnos swipe alongside Violet Teacher. He needs to get Power of the Wild in here. Oh. I think there's a really good chance that there's no Force of Nature Saboteur in this deck.
It's just a board development deck, which is no finishers. Maybe like one Savage Roar. Maybe just one copy.
That would be really weird to me.
Well, this deck's already a little bit on the unconventional side. We've seen Defender of Argus in Token Druid before. People have experimented with the idea. I know Tempo Storm guys threw it together a month ago or so. But, you know, it's still very relevant. Look at just the power of what you can develop very quickly if your opponent can't respond to it. With Power of the Wild, you'll have 3 2/2s and a 4/6 to back it up.
This has got to be a Ragnaros turn. Oh, I lied.
Or
yeah,
just Sarah.
I think there is. This is a like no-brainer, but he's gonna go through it anyway. Trump likes to go through these motions, and rightfully so, because sometimes you find yourselves in positions where there's other plays to be made. Oh, you know what? He's still counting up Force Nature combo.
Yeah, just in case he has a full damage on that.
This is actually kind of a brilliant deck building strategy if this is what he's done. Because your opponent is constantly worried about this combo, and instead you're just overdeveloping.
There will come a point where people just ignore the combo and just keep playing it, though. Like, they don't get scared so much in the corner, but it does play a little bit of a mind game for the first time it's revealed, right? After this, his Druid deck can be put on notice if he draws no combo. That he's like, wow, this guy actually doesn't play combo. I don't have to worry about it. So there is a little risk inherited in this tournament and the later rounds.
I like it though. That's the good kind of risk, I think, is when you're look at this, he's just going for it.
Power of the Wild. By the way, Trump got Laughing Sister.
Yeah,
I think she's the only person smiling. Maybe Wuaschtsemme too.
He's also got Brawl though, so hold on for this one. Because I think Trump's about to take control of this game. This looks to me like a Attack Argent Commander Brawl.
Is there an alternative way to do this? Like, is there anything you can do with... I think it's too dangerous relative to combo, right? You're always in danger of perhaps dying.
It's tough to say.
Yeah, because I'm saying if he goes for like an alternative play, tries to use this air to play cleanup and stuff, you just die if it's just like Force of Nature or in Savage Roar.
Yeah,
or just Savage Roar, excuse me.
You're gonna have to. I think Brawl is gonna have to be done this turn. That's the issue is how you end up brawling. Like you could play Laughing Sister ahead of time. You could play it afterwards. You could attack with Ysera into the Argent Commander Brawl and then Faceless something, or even Sludge Belcher afterwards. There's a lot of different lines of play with how you want to brawl, and it's a matter of which one of those acts most effectively in the post-brawl scenario. Wow. He's just going for the extra % on keeping Ysera alive. This is an important one.
I'm one of the Violet Teacher apprentices. Does end up sticking around. That's pretty nice. It's probably the best one other than Ysera.
Yeah, I think Trump's very happy with that. Yeah, kind of unfortunate that you have to lose your Ysera, but this is just the position you've gotten in.
All right, Wuaschtsemme. He does run combo pieces.
I am like
that is so late.
By this deck building.
It's 20 cards deep into his deck.
I think you're right.
His first post.
I think you're right. I think it's one copy of each.
No, certainly. If the last 4 cards are 3 of the 4 combo pieces, that would be so devastating and annoying for the Druid deck. Here. Gosh. And that top deck isn't the prettiest. But, you know, it's sticky. And it might be able to give him an ability to push for damage, but we know that things like Faceless on the Sludge Belcher give this deck a hard time. Or even Ragnaros to just eliminate some of the damage.
I was going to say, I think this is by far a Ragnaros turn. This is like one of the turns where I think you can have some bad things happen and still be totally fine. And I imagine I'd be surprised if this wasn't followed by Unstable Bull as well.
Well, he armors up.
Armor up. Chump is very conservative with in terms of where his armor is concerned.
Ooh, well, that's a value, Argent Squire.
Yeah, that's an ugly one. Wow!
Okay.
And there's a... What the heck?
Hold on. See, he has 21 damage.
Well,
Oh
mind
my
you,
God.
he has to push through.
Yeah, but with Hero Power and the Argent Squire pushing through, he has 21 damage. He's 1 damage off lethal.
7, 11...
Oh, no, sorry. He's 2 damage.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I miscounted. Miscounted. Little crisis there.
11, 15, 19. Yeah, he's got 19 points here.
I was counting the 14 plus Lotheb because I forgot that you had couldn't touch
I
that.
imagine he's going to clear the Ragnaros here, but
Yeah.
I think he may have acted too quickly on this too, by the way.
You think so with Ragnaros out there?
What the...
So what is his last few cards? Is he going to put him within Force of Nature? Does he have second piece of the combo? I think so. Does he have double combo and he top decks Force of Nature?
He doesn't have a swipe left. He doesn't have Argent Commander. This is a really risky play. I wouldn't be surprised to see Trump do something as crazy as just faceless this and hope that this ends up working out. Yeah.
Okay. There is a chance still if like Ragnaros leaves up Lotheb for some reason.
This is pretty intense.
Oh, one
That
shot if it leaves up Lotheb.
Oh, wow. That's going to be hard to push through. There's Keeper of the Grove, but that's not going to be enough. So he can't have 2 copies now because he's only got 1 card left in his deck. So Silence has got to come out on this. But what is his last card? Is his last... Even if his last card... Hang on a second. If his last card is Force of Nature, and both Ragnaroses hit the face, that could potentially end the game. But he's giving him the well played. What if his last card's Ragnaros?
Now that'd be crazy. Now that would be crazy. I don't know. Last card could be Kale Thazad. It could be anything.
Oh, he's just conceding.
No!
Okay, so we'll never know what it was, unfortunately.
Oh, and Trump.
Sigh
He was
of
really heavy.
relief.
Hunters dominating everything.
Oh yeah, it'd be tough to justify queuing up handlock into that many hunters. Now that being said, I queue against 50% handlocks and I play Zoo, but
always right.
It's the good old admirable luck.
Don't worry, you're not alone. There's a support group. They meet every Thursday. Okay, so Trump's been paying attention, by the way, and doing his homework, so he knows Black Knight is a good keep against this deck. It's not Zoo, it's Handlock.
Yep. It's a support group that meets.
Yes.
Handlock's anonymous. It's like, hello, I play Handlock on ladder and I have a problem.
My name's Admirable, and I'm addicted to playing Zoo on ladder. I just can't stop from attacking my opponent.
Always the face. God. Why do why do Zoo players only use Twitter?
Why?
Because they only know Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Got him.
r/Hearthstone dad jokes. There you go. I almost stumbled there at the end, but I got across the finish line. By the way, a pretty good start for Wuaschtsemme. He's got the Mountain Giant, and he's got the Sludge Belcher to follow it up.
Pretty good start from both of these players, frankly. Trump's got a couple of the tools that are not the direct removal spells that really make a difference in this matchup, Brawl and Sylvanas. And Wuaschtsemme, he's kind of drawn poorly here. Like 2 Mortal Coils is... it's a trade-off I think that you would make if you could ensure Mountain Giant every time.
Sure.
But not the most optimal draw. Soulfire on the Acolyte of Pain, though. That is weird.
Ooh. He loses a Molten Giant.
Yeah, I'm not...
That's painful.
That is really strange. But then he doesn't Soulfire the Acolyte, so he's still vulnerable to execute. I don't understand.
Strike.
Yeah, and hey, guess what Trump picked up, by the way? I was kind of looking at the hand of Wuaschtsemme, and Trump picked up the Execute. So basically, 3 cards, an Acolyte, armor smith and an execute walked into a bar and it killed 2 giants. And there is no punchline. That's exactly what just happened.
Hunter walks into a bar. There is no counter.
Oh man.
This is definitely a Black Knight.
Have you joined the brigade too? The anti-hunter brigade?
No, I think Hunter's fine. I think you can. I think that there's.
That's too admirable.
There's a lot of justification, I think, for taking care of Buzzard because I think the drawing is a little too powerful. Sure. But outside of that, I think the deck's fine. Savit's actually he recommended a really nice change that I would agree with, which is sorry, it was not Savit's. He was mentioning that Buzzard was a problem. It was Strife that mentioned it.
Yes, I was there. In
where it was yesterday. He said each card that you draw off Buzzard for that turn will cost an additional amount to prevent you from just chaining off your spells when you play a Buzzard. And I think it's a really elegant solution, honestly.
He basically says you can't play the cards that you're drawing, so that way it's not Web Spinner and then Haunted Creeper and then Animal Companion and then you just unleash without actually having unleash. By the way, pretty weak turns from Wuaschtsemme as he had to use Soulfire, he lost his Sun Fury, and Trump's just going about the Control Warrior plan as if he's not even playing against Handlock. He's just like a regular mid-range deck.
Yeah, he's weathered a lot of the storm early on with that Execute draw. The Execute draw was really crucial to this game, but Wuaschtsemme really put himself in a precarious spot when he chose the Soulfire Acolyte, but didn't choose the Soulfire the armor smith. Like it's such a big inconsistency in your game plan. I understand that you want to try to deny some draws from your opponent, but is it worth a Soulfire in that spot? I feel like it's not.
Okay. Now also is a little bit hesitant to play Mountain Giant with the 7 mana. Uses instead to build the board.
Yeah,
trying to have a way to shred the armor beforehand.
Yeah, he wants to get value on the Mortal Coil while he can. It's pretty important to do that, and it's very difficult to do it otherwise.
Okay, let's see what Trump has. He picks up Faces Manipulator. Not exciting yet, but still, like he has the best is yet to come for the Warrior. While Handlock is often very front-loaded, and then mid-game it just falls off until it gets into the late-game Molten Giant range. And at this point, Trump hasn't felt any pressure from the beginning, so it's all about how Wuaschtsemme ends this game, essentially. Combo plus any Molten Giants, but we already saw that he lost 1. And now Trump has some of the best responses to it. He's got Brawl for a huge board with Giants, and he even has some of these late-game legendaries like Sylvanas and Faces to match up evenly.
Yeah, Vosh is also, he's drawn both copies of Shadow Flame, which are not too spectacular in this matchup. Black Knight, but it's still gonna take care of your own 4/1 if you choose to play it here. And then it's also vulnerable to the Death Spite at that point, so this is probably the best course of action as far as that's concerned. And now Trump gonna have to deal with this Mountain Giant in some way or another.
I do like that Wuaschtsemme was also really making sure not only to pick up value, but to shred the armor beforehand.
Yep.
Making it a little bit more difficult. And as much as you can try to answer directly with something like Faces Manipulator, if you're able to kind of squeeze in more damage while doing Siphon Soul and keeping the threat lowered, and you don't have a way to kind of address the board, Warrior can still lose from this position. It's not over by any means.
I think this is a really easy Sylvanas turn, honestly. This is the strongest response you have because your opponent has to have a silence and a removal spell to keep you from doing something effective against the giant. Or they have to just ignore Sylvanas. Or they have to attack.
Oh,
wow!
The Iron Dig out off the top.
Pretty huge draw right now. It's not often that you see Owl being just an absolute monster of a draw, but this is certainly one of those positions.
I'm just thinking like there couldn't be a better draw than that, essentially.
I think that's the strongest deck, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, not even like his own. Yeah, there's no other way you could have effectively done that because he can't even life tap into it. Now he's taking his time to consider, and I'm wondering what he's thinking about. I think he's thinking about his follow-up plays too, because this one makes sense. He's kind of calculated his damage too. He has Leroy, so if he picks up Faceless and Power Overwhelming, this is still a very winnable game.
Yes.
And
Also,
Trump has to do something.
that's something we touched on too. When you're playing against someone who you perceive as very knowledgeable, it's good to not make these plays as quickly as you possibly can, so that way you kind of distort your the possibilities of your hand range to your opponent.
Okay. Now, Trump saw a Siphon Soul immediately, so hopefully he can put out another big threat and play a little bit more on the defensive side, once again, being conservative.
He's facing down 10 points of damage, and Leroy's in the hand from his opponent, but he doesn't have any other pieces of combo left, and both of his Soul Fires are gone. So I think Trump's feeling pretty comfortable with the Mountain Giant here. Obviously, there's some things that could go wrong, but ideally, his opponent just extends into the board and opens himself up to brawl. I think that's what he's hoping for.
All right, well, what can Wuaschtsemme do from here? He can Leroy Shadow Flame as well and keep pushing for damage with his Mountain Giant.
$6-14. You have to sacrifice his owl to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he keeps his Mountain Giant really healthy at that point.
I think so. I mean, it's your only real threat at the moment. But he's going to go for the Sun Fury play and make life a little bit difficult for a warrior to push through. Let's see how much damage he has in his hand. He has Leroy and Hellfire, so that's 9.
Well, I think this is just a brawl turn. However you want to slice it.
Yep. Kill off the owl first.
The question is, I think, is more like, how do you approach? You know, he doesn't. This isn't necessarily a brawl turn. He could use Fiery War Axe. Yeah, this is actually way better. Apologies. He could just run the Armor Smith into the 2-1 and then trade Giants. And then he's actually sitting in a pretty good shape.
Okay. Well, if you're doing that and you're gonna attack first, so that way you get the armor. As much as everyone's like, well, draw first, shield block first. You always want to have the luxury of having the armor up.
Yep, he wants the armor to stack up afterwards too, so that way he can activate Shield Slam.
Precisely.
Ooh, if he drew Shield Slam there, that would
Yeah, actually, I just realized he had the enough shield if he armored up as well. That's pretty crazy. Okay, back over to Wuaschtsemme. Still way too high health to be effective with Molten Giant.
This looks to me like wow, he's missing one piece for 20 points of damage. Lotheb.
That's not too bad. He will die immediately to a death spike, but at least he's doing damage, if that's the case.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if Trump didn't play Grommash next turn.
See, Trump playing Grommash can do about 15 damage. Still going to be short, though. Meanwhile, Wuaschtsemme, he can also piece together, like, Lotheb and then continue to push, and then maybe Leroy and Faceless can come out with the power of overwhelming to end it no matter what. So Trump sitting in a kind of interesting situation.
This might be a 6-mana execute. Wow, how good would execute be? I don't know. You know what? This might be like a Ysera spot to try to recover the game. There are so many different lines of play here. This is weird. So if he takes 5 from Lotheb, and he takes 2 more from... Is that just going to kill him if he does that? So if he takes 5 from Lotheb, we'd be down to 15.
13 from Leroy plus that. It's 15.
15.
Yeah, that is death, actually.
Yeah, that would be death. Oh my gosh.
So if Trump attacks into Lotheb and he doesn't armor up, he's dead. At least based off what Wuaschtsemme has. He might still pick up Faceless.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, phase 1 to
my gosh.
victory.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Wow.
And you know what? It's because of that execute costing 6 mana.
Oh my
it really
gosh. And Wuaschtsemme is going to take game 2. He's got exactly 15... Wait a minute.
Wait.
Oh my gosh, he missed lethal.
No, he didn't see it. No, he didn't see it. He
my gosh.
He has too many cards. He didn't see it. Leroy, Power Overwhelming, and Hellfire was the end of the game. Oh, and he's hesitating.
No.
I think he realized. That is you know what? We've all been victim to it. Life tapping a little bit too quickly when you realize you're looking for something else as a potential win, and then dropping when you realize and you confound yourself why you did not look at it earlier.
That's
And there's a
painful.
chance now because wait, hold on. Let's see how much damage does Trump have if he draws into an activator for Grom. 15. Let's see, 15 plus the 4 from Ysera. That's 19 plus. Ah, but you can't squeeze in everything. So he's still safe, at least from what we can remember. But wow, he's making it a game. Wuaschtsemme is going for the exciting finish.
Oh my gosh.
Alex
Wow.
Straza. Hold on, let's see.
I think it's
So
gonna keep him protected. This looks to me like you attack the Twilight Drake and execute it, and then you can Alex yourself for 5. That'll bring you up to 18 life.
you know, Gromosh actually kills you too because
And here's the thing: there's no way that Trump's thinking lethal right now, because his opponent just would have killed him if he had 15, he had
It's so
12
true.
damage, 13
But,
damage in
at
his
the same
hand.
time, he did draw 2 cards last turn. He's
Yes.
drawing 3, so you still have
It's
to be
something-
mindful of it.
Yeah, it's something that's weighing on his mind. But what he's going to end up thinking about here is how much of a risk is it worth to play around it versus developing your board a certain way. I like the Alex Straza play here personally. It's like an armor for 5, and you get an 8/8 out of the deal.
He's hovering over Gromosh, which wait, no, he's still going to be put out of range though if he armors up.
Yeah, he will be put out of range if he still does this correctly. But I don't see armor up happening here with the way that this is working. Oh my gosh. Wuaschtsemme is still going to be able to take it if he sees it.
I think he does see it though. There's no way he misses it now. And Trump is at exact lethal range. If he draws faceless, I think that's just icing on the cake.
Oh my gosh, he's got to see it. 10,
Okay,
13.
he's counting.
Yep,
He's got
6. Okay. Wow, that was really dangerous. If Trump would have ended up using Alex Straza instead, he would have ended up living this game. But there's like no way for him to think that his opponent can kill him after just what happened last turn. That's what I think.
it. Oh no, yeah. I think it's a spot-on analysis. It lures Trump into a false sense of safety, like, oh, he doesn't have Leroy or the combo yet. And you know, there's still
Or something ridiculous. Yeah, Texas is huge. It's huge.
Oh, is that where you got it from? Makes total
Everything's
sense.
huger in Texas. Trump gonna go.
All right.
Priest here.
Well, game number 3, excuse me, is about to begin. And Trump does not pick up a very exciting hand against Handlock.
Yeah, this is a spot where I'm curious how Priest is going to fare against this deck, because you have trouble against cards like Twilight Drake, a lot of trouble, and you only have 2 really efficient answers to deal with stuff like Giants. So a lot of this depends on what kind of mid-range answers that Vosh can put together here. If, like stuff like Sludge Belcher, for instance, is really going to give Trump a lot of trouble in scenarios where he otherwise wouldn't be too worried about it. He can just kind of fight his way through it and go from there. And this mind control early on is, it's going to restrict his decisions a little bit, but I don't think he feels too bad about the scenario. I would like to see, I was about to say, I'd like to see Injured Blade Master over Dark Cultist here. He needs to get this out and start working with the Cleric, and hopefully that can get the job done. Even if he didn't have this first, I think he would want to play this first to try to get a Soulfire from this guy. Because this threatens to start being healed up, which is going to put a lot of pressure on Wuaschtsemme to counteract that sort of pressure. So he really does need a Soulfire here, and inherently there's a large risk involved with it, but he's going to choose to forego it.
Okay. And the heals will begin and draw. This is really key for Trump to just get started. And even if it's Hellfire, at least he has minions to play. That's what's so important about a card like Dark Cultist. It gives minions to play for Priest. Before, it's just you're having Circle of Healing, Holy Smite, and it's reactionary cards, and you don't have actually anything to do if the board's cleared. So say the Hellfire does come out, which Wuaschtsemme hesitated for a second because he realizes what's implications if there's a Shadow Word Death and he heals again. And so he does go for a Hellfire, which I think is the better play. But now Trump can still do stuff.
Yeah, he's finding himself getting into a safer and safer position every single one of these turns that he's able to get the development edge. The Black Knight really helping to secure that position as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, ooh, Wuaschtsemme. I thought he was gonna go for the Mountain Giant instead of tapping, but I think tapping, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't. And he picks up a Twilight Drake. Very critical card to take.
I would actually like to see the Twilight Drake here over the Mountain Giant.
He loses the Leroy and the Soulfire.
Yeah,
but at least he didn't lose something like Twilight Drake, which would have been so critical.
To me, you don't even want to Soulfire here because your hand's so stacked.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons I think you want to see Twilight Drake, or that I would like to see Twilight Drake instead, because the Twilight Drake is going to challenge this Dark Cultist, regardless of what your opponent's going to play, and you're also not vulnerable to something like Shadow or Death, or like a counterplay of Sylvanas here. It's something that you're a lot less vulnerable to, it feels like.
All right, well, a Shadow Flame pickup for Wuaschtsemme. Not exactly the most helpful right now. He's going to life tap, which heavily implies he's going to go for the... Actually, he's going to go for the coin into the Sludge Belcher. I was expecting a little bit something else, but I think it makes sense. Granted, he doesn't want Sylvanas to proc really easily.
Yep. Curious how Trump moves forward from here.
Okay, well, he's going to take the Giant. Why not? The Holy Smite fits the boot.
Speaking of boots, he needs to start farming.
I was actually using boot in the right context there, not just a funny Canadian accent.
He needs to start farming those pumpkins to try to get a boot. Did you see the post on Reddit this morning, by the way? A guy who found 3 boots in the garden. You know, like the little pumpkins.
No idea, but that does sound like an interesting premise to a comedy.
So the pumpkins you could squash next to like this little tower in the bottom right. You can find boots when you regrow them from.
In Hearthstone.
Yeah, in Hearthstone, the guy found. The guy's
cool.
a screenshot of finding 3 boots, which is like, that's the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I farmed for 3 boots for months and I never found one.
That's interesting. I didn't even really think about that. That's interesting. Okay. By the way, Trump actually looked like he was a little frustrated with what happened, like as if he misplayed. And I was trying to like evaluate if he could have done that sequence any better, but his play was pretty straightforward as far as I remember.
All right, yeah, I'm a little curious too. Like, it seems like I wonder why he's thinking that way. And this power overwhelming play here, by the way, this is pretty standard at this point because he's lost his Leroy. So a lot of his reach is gone at this point. And yeah, Karen, by the way, here this is also a lot better than playing the Ragnaros is. Not only does he get an extra hero power tick out of here, but he develops this Karen. This is something else he wants to get on the board and really get the ball rolling with. Like if this can bait out some removal spells, this ends up being like way better than the Ragnaros does, because then the Ragnaros is in the clear. So it's like this owl here. It feels like it's kind of rough, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Like he's kind of welcoming these, again, using this sort of stuff as removal spells because he wants to find a way to get repetitive value out of something. And Karen's going to be getting value no matter what. It's sort of the nature of this card. It's how he moves forward. Because look, he can just heal his Karen and go from there if he wants to, or he can drop this Ragnaros, take a 50-50 here. If he manages to pick off this Twilight Drake now, he's going to find himself
that
in a
would be big.
Position.
Oh, it hits the face.
Still a lot of damage, though.
Mm-hmm. Hang on. Well, okay, so Wuaschtsemme still can go for a clear of some kind using Molten Giant and Shadow Flame.
You're going to start to run out of threats eventually if you keep doing that sort of stuff, though. So like it feels nice to be able to Shadow Flame this board away, but he does have to account for how many threats he's losing, because something that we've been seeing come more out of priest decks lately is stuff like Mind Control. Mind Control, since the format has slowed down, has become a much more important priest spell again. And he's going to go for Shadow Flame. I can't say that I disagree with the Shadow Flame, but thinking about these sorts of plays is important to a certain degree. I'm trying to picture a situation where Trump doesn't Mind Control here, but frankly, I'm just not seeing it.
How else can he deal with this? Holy Fire Circle of Healing. That's pretty inefficient, using 3 cards to deal with 1, and you leave yourself with 3-1 yourself. You're not under threat of Leroy, so I think Mind Control absolutely is the case.
This is one of the swing turns you're looking for, is this exact kind of turn. You have an answer for a giant if your opponent plays it. You're not under any threat of something like Black Knight. There's no 20-point Leroy combo from your opponent. This is just pretty much exactly what... This is almost ideal for the kind of situation he's looking for.
I'm also trying to see if Trump also had some kind of lethal, but he'd be short a couple mana in order to execute that. So he still has a way to finish, but if he picks up like second Holy Smite and an opponent just doesn't set up anything else, say he drops like Mountain Giant and tries to just go for it, but he's still at 11 health, so he doesn't feel good enough yet to do this. I think this makes the most sense for sure. Just dropping the Sludge Belcher. Mountain Giant is just way too expensive at the moment.
Yeah, I like the diversifying here. Ooh, that's not a bad pickup. Too bad it costs so much right now.
Yeah, the following turn it can do something. Just, you know, how do you kind of approach this? Is Lothab a big enough threat where you just Shadow Word Death and just go back? And everything else is just stopped by a Sludge Belcher. Man,
Yep.
the more I see this card, the more it just continually impresses me.
Yep.
You know, because some people say that it's their favorite card, even more than Lothab. And it's just, you know, Savis told me that, right? He's like, oh, I like this card as my #1 card in Axe Rammus. Maybe not just in terms of its overall strength, but in terms of his personal preference. He just thinks it's so good.
It definitely is one of the cards that's influenced my deck building more than anything so far.
All right, well, I guess Twilight Drake get to work. Cities aren't built by people sitting around.
This is a good position to be in now because it's his opponent's going to have to take initiative to do something to this board. Oh, Mortal Coil's in a bad draw.
Huh.
I would be very hard-pressed to not find Mortal Coil happening this turn.
Yeah, Mortal Coil with Giant, pretty good. Do you want to Faceless the Drake and give your opponent a hard time dealing with it?
I think the Faceless is better held in the hand.
Okay. See what he picks up.
Yeah. He's going to want to try to get double Giant if he can.
Trump still has ways to deal with Giants, and I think if he picks up like second Circle of Healing too, that's also another piece of insurance. So he still has lots of removal.
So many possibilities.
But I think the Giant coming out here is a little painful. You know your opponent hasn't really shown. I think Trump hasn't even played a single Shadow Word Death yet, right?
Almost out of time.
As far as I recall. So Wuaschtsemme
sure
feels
it
like this
is.
Giant's just going to die.
If that was the conclusion he was going to make, he should have definitely used Faceless Manipulator. So, oh, wow.
Wow, double circle combos. I think it is a little bit too good otherwise to to do this. Even dropping Alkanai and then hero powering, but then you open yourself up to Siphon Soul, but I think there's no other better option. You gotta put pressure on the board.
Alkanai might still be safe though. I think if his opponent doesn't remove it, he's still got another Alkanai in his deck still too. So
That's also a good point.
yeah,
Twilight Drake off the top, but Trump has lethal right now. He's got Holy Fire, Hero Power, and Alkanai. So he has to kind of play this. Well, he has to play the Farseer to heal out of it.
8, 9, 10, yeah. And if he plays the Farseer, he can't use Life Tap either.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But, you know, how much does he want to dig for, like, a Taunt Giver, right? To taunt up not only the Ancient Watcher, but even whatever he puts out. This is a really tough decision for Wuaschtsemme, because it's like, what can I potentially die to?
Right.
He's got to eventually decide soon, though, because I feel like the rope's about to start any second. Because there is 10 damage from what Trump has. He goes for a tap. Siphon Soul off the top.
Oh my gosh, what a huge draw right now.
Trump needs a little bit more
Wow.
gas. Maybe a Thought Steal can bring him back into this. Shadow Madness. Huh. That might not be too bad.
This innocent-looking Shire Cleric might be the difference between winning and losing this game.
Well, you're actually right, because the Shadow Madness might be able to reach for a little bit more damage.
Right.
This is so weird. So curious, because if he... Oh, wow. The Taunt Giver, though. The Taunt Giver.
Trump's really going to need to find his other Hawkeye right now, or this game is going to pretty quickly swing out of control despite the difference in life totals. Does Trump have something like Mind Blast in his deck, maybe?
I don't think so. I think Mind Blast was one of the first to go.
Well, I know that I've seen Amaz play with Mind Blast before. Just to have that extra little bit of reach. Like, that's one of the things that people discredit the most from priests, is their ability to have that sort of reach potential.
Shields up.
But at this point,
Sludge Belcher off the top's not bad, but they still kind of deal with the threat of what Handlock can do. You know, Handlock is getting a little bit low on cards, too.
oh, I didn't even realize that. He's actually just running out of cards.
So he's running out of threats to actually kill Priest with. Shadow Madness just a suicide and do damage?
Sure, yeah.
Why not?
He wants to get stuff off the board.
Okay. Does Wuaschtsemme have any late game cards like Ragnaros or second Molten Giant? You know what? We forgot about that because the first game he played Handlock, he discarded Molten Giant. That was against the Warrior. But now he has another threat absolutely down here.
If Trump draws his other copy of Hawkeye, Soul Priest, I think he's got this game locked, but outside of that...
Oh. He's pushing for damage because I think he wants to set up for lethal following turn.
Is Wuaschtsemme thinking about whether or not his opponent could have double circle with an Hawkeye? That's got to be what the hesitation is.
I think so. I think you're right. I think he's watching the way Priest plays it, and then that's an insane call to be able to make. How does Trump really approach this? Is he just going to draw his cards? I think so. He's going to draw 3 cards off of this. All right, Cabal Shadow Priest.
Trump
Another
still-
Sludge Belcher, and he
There's
gets
an
the Auchenai.
but it's a little bit too late right now. Auchenai Circle is not a strong combo at the moment. He's got to figure out a different way to push this board back. And I think it's going to start with a Holy Fire. Wow, not killing that Northshire Cleric ends up being a big difference in this game. I think that he had forgotten about the idea of Circle of healing his own minions, and thus Trump draw cards for that. Yeah, I think it's something that he overlooked.
Yeah, he's trying to think a little bit too advanced when the basics of what Northshire Cleric does ends up biting him. Soulfire. So you put out Double Giant and Soulfire. You take care of one of his bigger threats. Trump could be looking on the ropes. Is Trump not running Thought Steals, by the way? I haven't seen it yet. And if so, good for him to be able to break that. It's a really bad habit sometimes to feel like you always have to have Thought Steal, but sometimes it just doesn't work out for you.
That's a good point. You know that?
If he used it for like another minion spot, so that way he can have more consistency. Wuaschtsemme holds his Soulfire? He's not going to use it? He's going for the lethal?
Here using it. See, at this point, your opponent's already drawn all the cards they need. Like, how many more cards could they possibly draw? I think is his thought process.
Wow. He's going to be short lethal then.
My gosh.
Because now the one can attack into it. A second circle of healing allows him to clear this giant.
Is his issue is clearing what he wants to do here, though. Like, that's the other thing too, is he's got to think about how he approaches the win after that. So let's take a look at how this board unfolds. Like, say he chooses to use Circle of Healing, right? So Northshire Cleric's going to run into this Ancient Watcher. Hawkeye Soul Priest is going to come down. Circle of Healing is going to deal 4 across the board. Ancient Watcher is going to die. Sun Fury Protector is going to die. Black Knight's still standing there, but it's going to fall to the hero power from the Hawkeye Soul Priest, twisting that around. Yep. Oh yeah, this is absolutely the right play.
Yep, that's what you want to do.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be beautiful, and you even have a Taunt Giver after that. Oh no, so just kidding. Forgot about hero
Yeah.
power.
Yeah, he's
So
going
at
to
least,
definitely hero power. Wow, this is a great position, I think, for Trump to be in, though.
There we go. See what he draws.
Oh,
Thought
he does have
Steal
Thought
off the
Steal.
top. He does play Thought Steals. There's only 4 cards left, so he's gonna get valuable intel.
Your turn to
That's a
Well,
really...
you know.
With his Mortal Coil left, that Power Word
Well,
Shield
you know.
suddenly is really important right now. Siphon
Siphon
Soul!
Soul.
I'm not sure that's the right play, though. If he Siphon Souls right here, Sludge Belcher is going to come down, and it's really going to protect Trump from any further damage. And there's that Power Word Shield making a huge impact right now. Oh my gosh, I think Trump's going to recover.
Has he done it? We know Defender of Argus is still in the deck, but that is like the only form of damage. Trump is still several cards away, I think, although he is getting thin too.
Wow.
Hold the phone. If doesn't Wuaschtsemme have another Iron Beak Owl? If he has another Iron Beak Owl, that's also game 2.
I don't know. There's a possibility he's only got one copy.
I've kind of lost track of the cards here.
Ancient Watcher, it's not what he needs. And now
Wait,
how
he
does
says-
he can't
wait.
push...
That's it then. He can't win. The only thing is, if he can't push through here, and he loses something, he only has Defender of Argus. He has no way to attack.
Right.
Unless Trump is on fatigue as well, which even then he out heals the Warlock. I feel like Trump's done it. Is it too early to call? He
I don't think it's
taps.
too early to call. I think this is going to do it.
This is over. Trump has somehow been able to defeat Handlock despite Priest traditionally struggling against the Handlock. Very nicely done. And Wuaschtsemme just has ran out of threats.
Yep. Trump's going to be able to taunt up too much at this point.
Sludge
That's
Belcher.
Oh wow! Look at this. He's only going to taunt the 5/6, which means he's going to. I think it means he's going to wait one more turn. Oh gosh! I think you got a Mortal Coil Soulfire this Sludge Belcher. Oh gosh! I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all.
He
You got
just
Mortal
Thought Stole
Coil
too,
first.
though. He also Thought Stole, so you kind of have an idea what it is. In fact, if he Mortal Coils and Cabal Shadow Priest, he's effectively taken all threats off the board. And he hesitates.
Oh my gosh! I mean, how do you lose now if you're Trump? You just take control of your opponent's Defender of Argus, and then just taunt up your Dark Cultist and your. Oh, you know, Trump's thinking about how many Shadow Flames have been played, Hellfires, all that sort of thing. He knows that one of his opponent's cards left is Mortal Coil, so all he's got to account for is whatever the last card is. And if he's been paying it close enough attention, he knows it's Soulfire.
Yeah, and this is where, some players have been trying to take notes to see how things go. And he's going to slow play it even more because his Zombie Chow can be the last form of defense if something comes out. And Trump's going to leave it up to fatigue, but I think Wuaschtsemme realizes he has no way to win this game anymore. Absolutely none. He's already taken fatigue damage, and there's no way for him to deal damage whatsoever.
Well, he doesn't know that Trump took Defender of Argus from him. He doesn't know what Trump took.
No, but how does he actually press for damage? How does he win? He has no way to attack.
Yeah, you know.
There's no way to do it.
Honorable Sudoku.
There we go. Soulfire. Onto himself. Well played. Trump jumps up to a 2-1 lead. This series is not over yet. But man, it's been tense the entire way through. Every single victory for both players, you can definitely out. So, what a game, to say the least. And now, Miracle Rogue will be the one to try to hold the line. And if it doesn't work out, Trump does have his zoo. So I feel like Trump has a good chance to close out this series. But it's never easy against Valera and her draws.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue is certainly one of those decks Miracle is an appropriate title. I feel like it just always seems to win. I'm a little surprised he chooses to keep the Blood Mage.
By the way, previously on Priest versus Rogue, we saw a fun scenario where Sylvanas was able to capture a concealed gadget stand, defying the odds of 50-50. I wonder what happens. Find out. Stay tuned on this episode of the HyperX Invitational.
Hungry
Okay.
for vengeance.
Starting things off, I like it. Thalanos is a big liability. It's probably the only target that can get Cabal Shadow Priest other than the Gnomish Inventor.
Right.
Just get it out of the way. Your hand's looking pretty thin otherwise. Oh, look at that. Fan of knives. Gonna do some work.
Huh. That's
Match that.
pretty spicy little meatball.
Is that your favorite food? Meatballs?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's just I just like steak. It's so good. What's your favorite
It
food?
is. Oh, God, I can never turn down a good rack of baby back ribs. Judge me all you want, but I can't do it.
I'm gonna go for barbecue tonight. What do you think of that?
I think I'm gonna hop over to your place and catch a ride.
You know-
I'll be there in 6 hours. Can you wait?
Yeah,
By plane?
You're more than welcome.
All right. Cool. Sounds like a plan. We can complain about hunters together.
No mission inventor joining the void. This is something that's this is a weird interaction. Backstab actually can't hit injured Blade Master.
Well, pre-nerf backstab could, but we know that those days are history.
Oh gosh, that was. Let's not even talk about pre-nerf Rogue. Just geez. Oh, it's giving me a stomachache just thinking about it.
I like pushing out Zombie Chow. I think the way you kind of take Miracle is really force them to use removal early on, and if they can't, you can stack the damage. And you do have Alkanai Soul Priest in hand already, so you can continue to push that combo. The Zombie Chow, Alkanai Soul Priest Dream.
Yeah, this is something I think you see a lot from players who are versed in this matchup. Is just as you were saying, like pushing the board position against Rogue is really one of the only ways you have to win. You have to kind of hope that they don't have the AoE to clear things up, or hope that they just don't have all the removal spells put together well enough, along with something like Gadgets and Auctioneer, to continue to cycle through their deck while they kill all your minions. And that's the biggest key, is making sure that you can put pressure on them at the right times. Not necessarily so much about having the right counters or like having Alkanai and Circle for when they conceal a Gadgets and Auctioneer, because frankly, when they conceal a Gadgets and Auctioneer, it's kind of the anomaly. That doesn't always happen on turn 5 or turn 6. But something that does often happen is them just having a lot of removal spells and killing all your minions. So if you can have just more minions than they have removal spells, and those minions are efficient enough to actually pressure your opponent, I think that's where you start seeing a lot of the counter win rates.
Yeah, I think it's a great explanation of why sometimes, Priest can beat the Miracle Rogue. Paladin can beat the Miracle Rogue and put pressure in places that you're not really used to. Now, Wuaschtsemme could have gone for a full board clear by using Backstab, Eviscerates, and the Shivs, but he's opted instead to go for these chain draws to try and cycle through his Gadgets and maybe hit a preparation. If he hits a preparation, I think he can accomplish pretty much the same thing.
If he hits a prep here, he's going to be in very good shape. But instead he hits 2 Shadow Steps, and that's not too bad either.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's going to Shadow Step his Auctioneer. Look at this.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, preparation was one card off from being able to execute everything he wanted, because then he would have been able to prep Eviscerate before anything else happened.
I don't
That's too
really
bad.
know if Shadow Step's the right play there. I think that sacrificing Auctioneer has a lot of merit, because you've already basically drawn everything you need, which is 2 Shadow Steps, Leroy. You have an Eviscerate. You had Deadly Poison.
Double Deadly Poison.
And now you have double Deadly Poison. You kind of have everything you need, except now you're -6 damage.
Well, you keep drawing, so you have at least that minion to do. Because before it looked like he had nothing to do other than weapon up, Shiv, and maybe start pushing a little bit. I think if he top deck like Azure Drake, you are absolutely 100% correct. But I think in this scenario, it's a little bit grayer.
This is suddenly a tough spot. I mean, it's been one turn. And that's the other thing, too, is he lost his 4/4. So he took 4 extra points of damage. He needs to redevelop it if he wants to have it on the board. And in the meantime, Trump's just going to start pressuring.
Yeah, and it continually stacks, because now there's multiple targets you want to sap, right? There's a strong enough minion to withstand removal spells. But you do have double Deadly Poison and Blade Flurry. So maybe he can make some magic happen with that. Okay, going for a Gadget Stand play. Use preparation. He's got lots of ways to do this. And he's going to opt to use his preparation on a Deadly Poison instead. Okay. All right, so set up for a potential
wow.
way to kill. Let's see. When can you do Leroy Shadow Step plus Eviscerate is 16
Ooh.
plus the 5, that's 21. And if he leaves up the Akanai, he can't heal.
Yeah, Blade Flurry is going to be putting some pressure on, but 12. I mean, he's still going to have the mana to do all this stuff, too, and not die in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I mean, this is definitely a sign of aggression, but Trump still feels a little bit comfortable because his opponent had 7 mana. And he also showed a Shadow Step already, so he's not feeling under the huge threat of lethal. Wuaschtsemme, by the way, has 2nd Gadget Stand lined up and ready to get going. But can he also make a play to win the game in the next few turns? He has so much damage in hand.
That's sort of what I'm looking at. I don't think he even needs to use gadgets. He just needs to make a push for damage somehow.
And in a way, you know, the Akanai becomes a liability. Can't really heal. You can put down this Sludge Belcher and give your opponent a hard time, but then preparation becomes lethal anyways.
Yeah, that's really I think the big difference in this game is how preparation is such an important draw right now if he can manage to put it together.
Ooh.
Wow, and look at this. He's just going to like start putting the damage into Trump. Trump down to 14 now. That looks like to me that Trump might have just been sealed, because even if you play Sludge Belcher here, you're going to see Blade Flurry come out for 5 points of damage. It's going to put his opponent to 9. You're going to see Sap onto. Oh wait, no.
But then he can't Leroy. And
yeah, then he can't Leroy. You're absolutely right. Huh.
So the Sludge Belcher once again doing some good stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And he's put Miracle Rogue down to 10 health.
This is
so he has to
really
do this.
Close. Wait a minute. He can just sap the Sludge Belcher. Never mind, we're stupid.
Oh,
can just
you're right. You're right. Okay, now that we've gone that past, Wuaschtsemme was gonna take game number 4.
Yeah,
I was thinking we're thinking a little bit too meta here.
These casters are great.
Yeah, high level analysis all the time available to you.
He could just kill his opponent, but let's think of some plays where he doesn't.
Sounds good to me. Let's just do this for 6 hours. Why not? Trump's gonna drop game 4, and Wuaschtsemme evens it up, sending it to the Zoo versus Miracle, which is gonna be down to the draws once again. And see,
like, even if you're kind of looking at having to draw just so well to be able to combat your opponent's range of cards, like, you're gonna need Backstab, you're gonna need SI7 Agent, you're gonna need Fan of Knives, you're gonna eventually need to play Gadget Sand and keep going from there. And it's certainly possible, but it's not nearly as often as it was prior to Zoo getting all these consistent minions it has. And even something like Echoing News now is going to put a lot of pressure out.
Yeah, but Trump draws Soulfire and Doomguard. So it's going to have to come down to a tough choice. Doomguard, once again, it's an excellent card for what you want to do. And, you know, some people even rationalize having it in your opening hand might even be good enough pressure on Miracle Rogue. You know, in Wuaschtsemme, he has cards to kind of deal with a few things here and there, but he needs to kind of piece together something like maybe Deadly Poison, SI7 Agents. Those are the cards he's looking for.
Yeah. Ooh, Second Auctioneer is not good. He needs to draw a Deadly Poison really bad. Or a Fan of Knives, something along those lines. Wow, Shattered Sun Cleric.
Yeah, put it out of range.
Yep. It feels to a lot of people like that's not that big of a deal right now, but I can promise you it's a much bigger deal than a lot of people think it is. It's 4 power coming on the board. One of it gets to attack this turn. Just getting a lot of pressure out. Oh my gosh, is he going to life tap instead? Oh, he's going to reposition. Okay.
Yeah, in case he draws Defender of Argus, I think he wants to posture Shattered Cleric in the middle. Because what happens is if you Shatter Stone Cleric and he has Deadly Poison, he has to make a tough choice. You actually give it 3 attack anyways, or 4 attack, and then force him to exchange more of his health as a resource. So
yeah, but he doesn't play around Betrayal this way, though.
Oh, man. I thought he was good at Arena. What happened?
This is a pretty easy Earthring Farce here, I think.
Well, it's easy to say
you know
goodbye,
what?
but it's
actually,
not,
he drew Blood Mage. I think there's some merit to using Blood Mage and Blade Flurry here.
Oh, yeah, the 2 damage across the board. Yeah, I forgot about the coin. You're right. If he uses that, he leaves up a 2/1 Void Walker and reset the board. I think that is what he's going for.
It's kind
You
of tough.
effectively take off 5 damage from the board. You are losing a little bit though.
Yeah, if he
But I
attacks
think
with
it's
a
well
dagger,
worth it.
yeah, if he attacks with a dagger, that's definitely what he's doing. But this is more than enough pressure to really reset Trump back to a spot where he's uncomfortable with where he's been. Blood Mage, by the way, I think Blood Mage is one of the more key cards in terms of the AoE that you want to present to your opponent. And now Trump's finding himself in a really tough spot. Zombie Chow not looking too appealing at the moment.
Yeah, he picks up Direwolf Alpha, which can continue to buff up and do damage. But it's starting to work a little bit against him with how his draws are pairing up. Well, who knows? You know, maybe he can put out enough damage and Zombie Chow continues to do and work. But now you're kind of afraid of backstab. It's a liability.
Yeah.
Zombie Chow heals for 5. Your opponent's able to be really effective with it. He's going to be drawing a card off of Thanos anyways. But what are you forced to do? You're dumping your hand because you're most likely going to Doomguard next turn.
I think what he's really thinking about is how he actually wins the game. And this is something that I've seen him like it's kind of weird to say it this way, but he's grown a lot with Zoo. He understands that this deck has to take extremely aggressive lines at times and has to throw a lot of caution to the wind. So his early play has been disrupted. So what's his backup plan? He's not going to recover the game of card advantage. He's not going to be able to just like very easily fluidly fight through his opponent's board and then kind of put together the damage as he sees fit. He's going to have to actually fight for the damage. So what this means is that he's going to be a lot more reckless with how he chooses to play. So when he does it this way, he's quite literally assuming his opponent just doesn't have the tools to deal with what he needs to deal with here. And this Earthenring Farseer, when it comes out, I expect this to get soul-fired and him to take the 50-50 with this Doomguard.
All right. And I feel like you're... Ooh.
Whoa!
I guess he's not going to even risk it. Trump doesn't want to go out like that.
That's... Yeah, I think I take the 50-50 there. Like, if you end up with an extra 3-3 on the board, like, your opponent would have been at 20... so he would have gone to 20, and then he would have gone to 18. Like, your opponent would be at 12 life right now, and you'd have a Zombie Chow, the Doomguard, and the Direwolf Alpha on the board if you succeeded. And I think that after the way this game has started, a 50% chance to win, to be in that kind of position is... I think that's a very good spot to be in. But this way, it's like there's so many things that can go wrong now. Because now he needs 4 attacks with the Doomguard for him to be able to win this game. That's so hard to put together at this point.
Well, if he's drawing pretty well, so that way he doesn't have to sacrifice too much. That's not it. But say he picked up another 1-drop, Voidwalker even.
You know, that's sort of what I'm kind of getting at though. Your opponent had 6 cards in their hand, so it's really easy for them to start picking apart what you've been doing after this.
Sure,
so this is sort of like a lot of times I talk about people deviating from their game plans, and it ended up ending up affecting you so much long term, where it feels like you're making like a really safe play to advance your board position. Sometimes you don't have the liberty of making a safe play, and those plays are super subtle and often hidden. But I think this is one of those spots.
I feel like I kind of like Leroy's removal here, by the way, eventually. Because the Doomguard, he's basically left to top decking, and you have double Gadget Sands to continue to draw.
You could almost justify racing your opponent, honestly. Because your opponent's so... Remember, they got to put together 10 more points of damage from this board position. Like, they're going to have to start attacking your stuff. Like how often does Trump not attack this Gadget Auctioneer here? I don't know why he wants to Shadow Step. That's just 12 points of damage. Like, that's half your opponent's life at this point.
Or even more.
Yep.
Okay. Trump will life tap and see what he draws. Shattered Sun Cleric. And you're right, you feel like Gadget Stand's too much of a liability. That'll be his way to climb back into the game. So Trump gonna go for that and try to play what he could. But I think this is Wuaschtsemme's time to shine.
Shadowed Sun yeah, this is going to be really rough. You can still pull this out. It's not like over yet, but he's certainly in bad shape. Oh, backstab.
Is sick.
That may have ended this game. Because now he can backstab the Shadowed Sun Cleric. He can attack with a 3/3 into the Voidwalker. He can Fan of Knives to clear out the Voidwalker and put the Doom Guard to 2, and then he can Shadow Step the SI7 agent and finish it off.
Hey, I don't think he has enough mana to do that, though. But you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah, he does. Because remember, when he Shadow Steps, the SI7 agent's going to go back down to...
You can't Phantom Knives, though. While
Why not?
Because he has 2 mana.
He doesn't have to cast the Auctioneer.
Oh, I thought you were suggesting the Auctioneer. My bad.
Yeah. You just leave it backstab. Like, I think it's totally fine to do it that way.
Well, he's
This
going
is
for
fine
the
as well. I
backstab
mean, you're just going to see
anyways.
Sap, but you're going to see Sap and then a trade. This is also a fine line. It's like there's so many ways to do this at this point where you can cripple your opponent's board that it almost doesn't matter how you do it.
The most important thing is that you're clearing the board every
Yeah.
single time.
Well, you're clearing
Now
your
you're
board.
stacking your board.
Right, you're clearing the board. Your board's going to get stacked, and you're going to have stability of having a massive amount of card advantage because your opponent doesn't have anything left.
All right. Well, I don't think there's anything that Trump can do. Let's say if he top decks a Doom Guard, he still can put on a lot of pressure, but there's still so much of what Miracle can do from this point on. And now he can't even deal with Gadget's in.
Yeah, that locks the game up.
Okay. Let's see. Trump's just kind of closing eyes and waiting because I think he realizes the inevitable is about to happen. Gadget Stand has survived.
Just again going through the motions. Like, how do you want to kill him?
Well, take it slow. Try to see if you can draw something nice off of, deadly poisons. Leroy is your 12 damage finish. So maybe if you draw into Blade Flurry. Is that even game right there, Blade Flurry? No, you don't have enough mana to Shadow Step. Okay. Yeah, SI7 agent to remove. It kind of makes Zoo come to its own conclusion. But it looks like Trump's winner's bracket run has stopped here, as Wuaschtsemme is going to be able to run all the way through the finish line and advance to the winner's finals.
Yeah, there's no way Trump can get out of this board position. Wait, unless... Wait. Again, it just sort of does... He can kind of just, like, close his eyes and, like, play a random card from his hand
This is
every
like the
single
long
time.
BM. This is the long BM. It's like, I'm not going to BM you just one turn when I have lethal. I'm going to BM you over the course of many turns where it's... I'm making it look like I'm desperate. Man, I need to clear as best as I
You
can.
listen to me and you listen carefully. I possess a very particular set of skills. If you do not stop this right away, I will find you, and I will BM you.
Nicely played. Trump gets the abusive sergeant, allows him to trade, but it's just so pitifully weak.
I know everyone wants to have a glimmer of hope here, but this game is over. This is literally a matter of going through the motions.
It's still not over like this turn.
I think Trump could pick the cards he wants to draw for the rest of the game. Like, just pick Hearthstone cards he wants to draw and still lose.
Let's see. I think you're right. I don't. What's interesting too is Wuaschtsemme still can't win this turn, but he can continue to put it out of reach. He can probably draw the rest of his deck, take 3 fatigue damage, and still win. And I don't see why not just dropping Van Cleave here, and
Right.
then you can finally set up a lethal.
So the first card he's going to have to draw when he picks Hearthstone cards to draw for the rest of the game is Deathwing. And...
Oh, Defender Vargas? I don't think that's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna matter because he can't taunt up. That is 12. That is 17 damage raw. He is gonna Soulfire, but he knows Leroy is lethal. Now, will Wuaschtsemme continue this pounding, or will he end the game? The Germans can be ruthless when they're trying to dissect their opponents.
I think he's gonna put Trump out of his misery at this point.
Here we go.
And that's gonna do it. Well played over to Wuaschtsemme, Miracle Rogue, rearing its head in this series. And boy, can that deck put some damage together. Don't count it out just yet. This deck is never really quite dead. Again, I think the matches got a lot closer, but I still think Miracle has a pretty significant